Mhm.
Słyszysz babkę?
W miarę. Powinno być w miarę okej. Yeah, we're starting online already. Can we start? Yes, everything is alright. So I will present the situation maybe, if somebody doesn't know. Monika Gąsior is here with us. She was the second executive director of our movie The Glorious Several Minutes, with whom we first did a previs in Film Spring Open a few years ago. The author of the concept, we made a previs in here, and then we put it all together. The reception was so good in Film Spring. People were coming and saying very, very nice things, and they were writing to me for some time later. So this made me. We decided to make it in a more concrete way, and we got financing from the Munch Studio. And the panel is about green production because we have nothing to do with Wawrzyniec with this. We did not do anything ecologically, at least nothing special, because the girl was so great in production that we didn't have to tackle with anything. So let me just give the floor to Monika, who was actually dealing with this directly. Well, Bart is a very, very humble person, and he downplays his impact. But I think that the fact that I got a Stylomatic of course, often with such movies there are certain budget limitations, and all the movements that we can there's all the moves that we can do, starting from the lighting through materials, causes the less use of such materials. Okay, you said Stillmatic, and you said that in Unreal, Wawrzyniec created every space that was shot in the movie yesterday in Unreal, or in Blender, in 3D. So the club, we were sort of testing out how we should do that. He also made a mock-up of the hall. So somebody was building a club, and we had to shoot these scenes in the water with Argon, with the protagonist played by Jacek Beller. So these things made, as Monika said, we didn't really have money for that, and thanks to that you could spare a lot of money on the tests, because the whole storyboard was in 3D, and certain tests that we could have done in real life, we did them in a 3D environment. That is correct, and I think that good preparation for the production, especially if you're low on the budget, it has a lot of impact, not only on the budget, but also in terms of the sustainable production model. Now, moving on to the things which are not maybe related to, they're more related to production. I think the most difficult part is, from my perspective, a person who is to change the habits of the crew. We are used on the set to exploit everything, including the paper, and we have lots of copies of every document on the place. So we had to change our habits to start to use these things in the online version. When we were applying in Gdynia, if we had a script set design related papers. We printed on the back of these papers some additional materials. So we sort of reuse of paper, transport, food, materials that we were using. And these do not have to be some extremely innovative things, but just because it was enough to think whether we really need them, whether we can concentrate on things to be in the cloud, even things like sending out emails. We were sort of following our carbon footprint. I don't know if you worked on Asana, but we worked on Asana and it worked very well with us. And then we do not generate, we sort of, it allowed us not to generate the carbon footprint. So what is Asana? Monica, what is Asana? Because I don't know. Oh, it's a software in which where we share tasks with the production. It's a great way to share your production and for all your motives that you're working on, to watch them in a horizontal way. So something that you should do, what you should do before the shooting, what you do during the filming set. So you can take this application in the phone onto your phone, and you can be very responsive in terms of production and do not generate the carbon footprint unnecessarily. And this huge number of mails and other signals, everything is in one place. Well, it helps you to work with. It helps you work with the materials and in general with production. These were the most. I mean, I could tell you a lot of. I think there have been some interesting solutions, but I think the simplest things are the most important. Like the engagement of people about how to use the cloud, how to not to create unnecessary papers, etc., etc. The important thing is sort of not to generate the amount of such a huge amount of waste, and to be aware how much waste is being generated. It is not so. I mean, this also costs money later. When it comes to habits, I remember that on the set there's like a ton of script copies and waste related to storyboards. It's all sort of strayed everywhere. It's everything is strafed with storyboards, etc. So if we have script in one place and storyboard in one place, you do not have 50 of them, because you do not sort of lose them, and it's not treated carelessly. I think this is just a matter of certain order, and yes, I know that in a practical way you can say, yes, of course I have it in my hand, I can write on this, but I don't know, we all have everything in the phone, in the cloud, so why would we need also to use this additional option? Additional sort of administrative thing is the paper. So we tried also to encourage as many people as possible to do everything online. It is sort of sending electronic invoices, and I think it's something worth paying your attention to. Yes, of course. Also, the safe profile the trusted profile can be established in just a few minutes, and everybody can sign documents through in the electronic version. So you can do it even through your bank account. Adding such a contract and signing a contract is extremely intuitive. So you can sign with the process with the profile. This is a very simple process, and you can check it yourself. and there is, I mean, and it's free of charge. So I do encourage you, because and also you don't have to explain it to everybody because you have an instruction. So even people who are not well acquainted with technology are able to master that instruction. In terms of use of the materials, I think another important issue for us was something that was the food which is left, and that was always painful for me. We, of course, every day we calculated the need for food, and we knew, for example, how many people are on the set, and then the food is being left. You don't know what to do with it. So these are also costs which are unnecessary. So I think that it's worth not to throw that away and look for alternatives. I didn't hear What did you do with it? Well, jadłodzielnie. So like the food sharing system. There are plenty of options like that. I also recommend to you the foundation Chleb Życia. And there's a guy who works there. He comes over to a concrete place. He has his own car and he can collect such food. So not only you're doing something positive and useful, but also this is convenient. Do you have any questions? Are there any questions? When it comes to ecology, if you have no questions, Monia, if you have nothing else to say for the topic, we can finish this stage. We can talk also about the movie. If somebody has some questions, we can talk about one movie or another. If not, no, we might also be silent. I said we can talk about the movie because the organization of the set. I have no questions. Monia, would you want to stay with us or stay? I'll be glad to listen to you. Okay, if anybody has any questions related to the movie, which which we screened yesterday. Okay, I'll start with I remember the behind the scenes or the history. I learned about your presence during the final screening. The film was called had a different name during Film Spring Open, and I said who did that? Because I love that really. I mean, for me it was there were great dialogues. I remember there were good actors, and then I sort of understood because before that you made the movie Don't Change the Topic, right? And from that moment I sort of I started to understand it, and only during the Film Spring Open I've learned that what we've seen yesterday, it was created before. So it was good to see that movie. I remember that after the Film Spring Open I wanted to watch it, and you couldn't see it anywhere. And I was wondering, it's a very actors movie, and in the final version you've managed to get a great crew to work on that, and I don't know if it was so. Was it easy to get them interested? I remembered Mikołaj from the theater. I was his fan, and when I saw what you already I liked it very much. It was very good from the outset. Maybe you should say to what extent did the original idea change towards what we saw in the movie? It was a very long process because we've heard so many good things about this movie after the movies, and people didn't see that movie, and they didn't. That was the strangest thing I did so far. It was made in 2020 or 19. I don't remember. When were we in Film Spring? That yeah, it was 2019. Yeah, because 2020 was online. It was pandemic. But the text was written before, or did you write it here? No, the text I wrote the text before, just before the Film Spring. I wrote it all with the pain in my stomach. I just felt, it was born in pain, and I had to write it. I heard these voices inside my head as they were discussing things inside their head, and I said to Wawrzyniec that we have to shoot something together, and Wawrzyniec wrote like this very dry text message: "If you have something, send it," and that was it. I said, "Okay, I'll send it," and I gave him the script to read in the car. You said it's a very actors movie. I would say it's very much set in the language. And first he made it in the forest. We knew that there's forest there and nothing more. And I initially read it as some sort of that it's just a language. And I initially felt like that it was a virtual reality, writing, text messaging. It's a language which is present in virtual. And the thing I felt was that people who write it, they're writing, and they're lit only by the light of their mobile phone. That was the idea for the first movie, that the people will be lighted only with the camera, which will be a bit like screens and a bit like laptops. They will be lighting only the person who's talking. And in the image, you have only the text. If somebody says the text, this is the only thing that appears. And answering what you said before, how does it relate? How the second film relates to the first one? The concept evolved because we didn't want to make for the second time the same movie. We made a number of other recollections or other. It's very closing to say what you were thinking, because for me a very strong association was Fog of War from the gaming world. So if in a game you have characters which are moving around around the place which is sort of in haze, they can see only what is immediately in their vicinity. So this is it was the concept here, that the light will be only where the protagonists are. The only thing that takes place is the thing that is important, and that was my visual concept of this in general. We assume that this is all intentional, that this movie, the concept from the very outset was such, both in writing and formally, that we're for example, if somebody takes love and they're already in love, we didn't want to talk about the process, and that was supposed to translate into the world. In dialogues, everybody says immediately what they want to say. That just like they buy this love immediately. So it wasn't as radical as in the original movie. It was all about. Of course, it doesn't look very cinema-like, because when the camera shows only the protagonist, I remember that he was not happy. It all started to develop in our heads, but when it comes to this world, they are looking for somebody in black, and this world is limitless, but whatever they want appears immediately. It was also a sort of a joke in a way, and also playing with convention. We treated that as an adventure movie. But so they can find everything what they want. They can find everything they wanted to find. Why? Because why not? It is just a movie. So we were just playing with the convention. We treated that as adventure game, about a surreal adventure game, like action film movie, maybe a comedy rather, and not a movie which would be science fiction. At some point, I remember I used it only once. That it's a science fiction. But I said, this is not a science fiction movie, and this is not what we're gonna no. This is not how we're going to talk about it. We wanted also to have some set design, to have some image in that movie. So that was a very difficult process. Our set design suffered a lot sitting with us and coming up with the ideas. It was a very long process because whatever happens, this film is about it, and it has some meaning, and it was very difficult. Like we had hundreds of ideas were scrapped. We would make like 100 musical videos just from the things that we scrapped. Yes, you can take review of the visualizations. You said this is not a science fiction movie. We also had a lot of rules for this world, and this world, I wrote a manifesto, 10 points, I remember, when we were to do it. Initially, the concept was to make a documentary in a surrealist world. So at some point, life verified us, so to speak, to make it coherent. We would never be able to shoot like that due to special effects, due to second takes. We had like 5 shooting days, so we couldn't afford. It was supposed to be all in long shots. There was markers. We had to look for them. If we're having this camera flying around, we would not be able to do the special effects. We didn't have much time on the set. 5 days is not really a long time. I had an idea for a trick for that. Sometimes I just didn't allow to turn off records. These shots were extremely long, because if you hit pause, everybody suddenly goes out to improve their makeup. You're losing a lot of time. But so we saved a lot of time. So it's a good trick. If you don't have time, you can always do it like this. In Film Spring, we had it even more radical. We were already members several times in the FSO, and the idea of making a 30-minute film during a FSO requires certain plan. We wanted to make it over 2 nights, not 5 days, but over 2 nights. And all this, the majority of scenes were in one shot, without any editing. We just had to play it the next takes properly. It was one scene after the other, and we managed to make a scene 30-minute movie within 2 nights, and people even liked it. I don't know if there are any questions from the room. I have a question, because this is the next edition and the next green production panel. How do you approach the green production? And what could you say to the participants? Because this year we have a lot of young people who took part in the competition of Kipa and Netflix, people who want to make movies. What would you recommend to them? What advice would you give them as the graduates, so to speak, of Film Spring Open? What in the ecological aspect, don't make movies. I don't know if you can make ecological movies. Of course, to a certain extent, yes, but this will always be about things for a while. Not always, unless you do everything in Unreal. So you have those screens right now, which starts to be popular around the world. something which will be fun for us, because it's good to get into set design. But I think perforce through technology, these such things will be forgotten. Will not enter as beautiful scenography. We'll just have a screen in the background. So I think this is the ecology that will appear, that the screen, the camera, and stealing of the magic. But I'm afraid this is how things have to happen. And so people, if you don't like it, you will have to go to the theater, even though this will not also not be ecological. But I think this is the work done by the girls Viola Łabędzi, Domi Miłkowska, and Ola Gąsior. So the set can become a place where you can learn the crew certain behaviors, like bring your own water bottles. I feel I hear everything properly, so don't worry. So the girls did a lot of good job, so that a lot of a crew, which maybe for the first time had some sort of a ecological chance to see ecological production. So a film set can become a place. You have there quite often people who are not from the world of film, and they are sort of employed there just by accident. We're also taught that all these things are available at our arm's reach, and we're used to very convenient solutions for every person, for every actor. I'm talking about the comfortable situation when you still have the budget, and sometimes. So, for example, you can use private cars and etc. Not. We understand that it's not necessary to get a taxi for every person, and nothing will happen if in 10 minutes, or they will spend those 10 minutes in a bus or with another person's private car. So this also thinking about such. It's all about your. We are just very, very lazy. I absolutely agree with that. And the smaller budgets we have, the more we get out of the comfort zone, and we try different solutions that are within our arm's reach. So, for example, Przegorzały, we have film spring open in a hotel in the middle of the forest. We have the restaurant, we have food there, and practically we have everything within the arm's reach. Which also, if you compare it to the big productions, in which I believe you had a chance to work many times and you could see it there. This is also interesting for me. What is your comparison? Did you ever work or help with large productions when you see these huge differences that we have pumped up? Transport, sort of exaggerated transport, waste, as you mentioned, of the food to the excess. Do you have such notifications? I mean, I can. This also especially works in the world of commercial. This is horrible. There, how things get wasted there. For example, like food. You, for example, shoot the sausages, and around this, like all the food is touched several times. Things get thrown out to the dump. So, for example, a client sends a pallet of food to shoot one shot with something, and quite often the crew is taking that, but sometimes, a lot of this gets wasted. Sometimes you don't even take it from the set because the filming day is over. for in the United States, for example, there's a coordinator who deals with such stuff. In Poland, we do not have money for the person who will deal only with such issues. So there is no strategic thinking about it, about what will happen. So I think the most important thing is the awareness. So this awareness in the crew, and people have to think about their department. A very good summary. Think globally, act locally. I was supposed to ask you something, but I just forgot it. It is absolutely... it is a stage that not making movies is a bad direction, but I think you will continue making movies because this is your element and your environment. But I also think that this is also education. We also miss such persons on the sets because we do not have this education in film schools. So starting from elementary knowledge, it is that you should start. And I think it would be much easier. I haven't been to a film school, but I'm talking a lot to my friends who have graduated from such schools, and it's not there. So how people would get those habits? Usually they start in large production projects, like large projects or commercial projects, and they feel that it's a natural thing. Yes, sometimes they want to do something ecological, but there's no understanding. I have a question to you then. Have you had, or is there some activity in this field? Can you say something? Because I know that we are referring here to a large group of people who are listening to us online. How we could deal with that as authors who have this tool and this knowledge? I do have a slightly tongue-in-cheek answer to that, because I think that the development of artificial intelligence is accelerating right now, and as it looks now, I think in a year or two, the product-related things will just take a one shot of an ice cream or whatever, and then it will be generated by AI in 2-3 years. In a few years, that will be for sure. Will not be wasting so much food because the commercials will be generated. That's my point of view. And also many people will lose jobs, which is maybe a less positive aspect of that, but it will be ecological, because the food will not get wasted. Certain elements will be recorded, of course, because the actor will play it, but some things will be generated, and they will cause to the disappearance of the of the waste, and by accident it becomes more ecological. Yes, but the tools are changing, but there's also a human factor. We're always pulled in the direction where humans are. So the film is also a teamwork, so to speak. So we do have a technological progress, and of course we will meet very soon. Will be sort of will not be chasing against the technology, racing against technology, but we always try to make movies together, and in a wise way, using this knowledge that we have, using the knowledge that we can share. That for sure is something that it would be really nice to have such a fantastic production as we had, which helped us and dealt with the things that we needed. So that doesn't happen always. There are pro-ecological movies, for example, where a lot of waste is being made. So during the production. If we were at home and we wouldn't take such decisions. I'm talking about the food, about the transport, and when we're coming to work, we feel that this is important. And you start to think rationally, because if you need something, it's best to answer that need as fast as possible, because there's plenty of dynamic variables. Great, thank you. You have a question? Yes, I have a question to the DOP. I don't know if you know this software, CineTracer. I learned about it today. Do you think it's something that can realistically help us in planning? It's like, is it like Blender, or can you flag and set up lights and see how it looks in real life? Maybe to make lighting rehearsals, or shooting rehearsals, because it also makes sense because you make it in a virtual way instead of transporting yourself to a location. Yes, of course, these tools, they sometimes, it is a tool which, according to me, is a means of communication. Apart from designing the set and the lighting, I imagine work in which somebody or somebody else cannot go to the location earlier because this is not available. We'll go there only for one day for filming, and we can create that in the virtual world. We do not have to make a documentation. It is pretty far away. The crew would pay a lot. It would cost a lot of money to get a crew there. Somebody makes a documentation, scans the environment on the location, and we can work in a 3D environment without the need to go. I mean, I did some planning of lighting the place. I couldn't visit for someone, so these tools can be used in such a way. It is a very interesting practical tool. With our head of lighting, I was with our sort of head gaffer. We spoke. I worked in this very similar way. After the storyboard and after initial planning of the lighting, he said that after seeing this storyboard, he has 90% of information. He doesn't need to talk about the lighting more because he knows more or less how it should work. We just spoke about some details, some logistics of deploying this, the sequence, what I would want to have in the warehouse. But basing on the 3D environment, he knew most of things. This shortens the time to getting to a common vision, so it's a great tool. Of course, you can draw it with lines in hand, but the 3D environment is extremely quickly, and the more there are ready tools, the easier it works. I got some ready avatars of characters. Sometimes it boils down to putting up a model, several sort of walls and the lighting, and it sort of defines your palette of colors and the lighting. You can learn it within a week to make your own movies with the help of free tools, and it's a great tool. You said you were talking about Cine Tracer. I was using the Blender. It's a free 3D program. You can learn you can see a few tutorials on YouTube and master working even with animatics, because you can also transfer the cameras to there. I just wanted to add that this is not it's not a tool for communication. We had a lot of challenge with our movie, because in order to show to the people what it should look like, especially when the film is experimental, it's formally different. If you have some experiment to make, then it can help in your life in communicate with people and sell them your vision. So to some extent, the morale of the team was raised by Wawrzyniec when he showed them the storyboards, which were nice, good looking. It was wow, people really wanted to, because they said we'll be making a nice movie, because people could see the mood of the movie. Also the materials, the tests, the texts, a lot of that was scrapped by building a club in 3D. What sort of material that would be, how we would like it to look like, to show it to set designer. We could not afford to get exactly a club from this material, but we were trying, we were testing out different things, and the communication gave us a lot. The fact that Wawrzyniec mastered Blender, I think Wawrzyniec, you were modeling the project UFO because before Kuba did them. You can talk about things and transfer them quickly to the image and communicate, which when we saw that film, how it's going to look like before the filming, the getting on the set, and that was a lot, because initially, for example, if you wanted to make like a typical residential district, then of course, everybody more or less knows how a residential district looks like. But if the world is created inside of our heads, it's a great tool. It's also interesting because more and more these movies will be bold visually, thanks to that. There's something wrong. We can't understand you. We're losing you. No. If we compared I think she wanted to say that the storyboard was compared to the final image, and it was very close. Was it what you wanted to say? Very good. So I can see that the Przegorzały are already in editing room. You can see it in the internet connection. Do you have any other questions? The first version, the level of cinematography was different. The first one had a different energy, and now I'm wondering, in this final version, it is very theatrical, and I was wondering, it would be easier to make an adaptation for the theater. Do you have an idea like that? Yesterday I got a proposal to send it to someone, because maybe someone could help me do it in the theater. And yeah, I think I had to follow that, because when we made the movie here recently, and everybody wanted to watch it, we did it once again. So maybe it's good to follow the film Spring Energy. Maybe it's good to make a theater show. There's a lot more of it in my head, and I'm developing a TV show out of that, a series. So a lot of this is in my head, so I should transfer it into the paper. So my question is to you: what is your impression after watching the new version? How do you judge it? For me, this aspect, because I wanted to put there are dialogues, there's sense of humor, there's time jumps, certain associations are in both. The dialogues are sometimes surreal but authentic. Both versions have the dynamics and the connectors, and this element didn't change. In the first version, the documentalist character worked well with the whole. Here, I felt the style is different. I sort of liked it. Also, you have good actors there, which is an upside. There's a dialogue, a black background, and this is what I found okay in both versions. I felt that this new version is formalized. The other one was wild, but I can't say it's better or worse. But these two, they're like two variants in different styles, and I liked both. It was good to see something like that after such a break. Some fragments, I don't remember everything so well, but some things worked very well. A lot was developed and polished, but the core stayed the same. What you're saying about these actors and the tale and the surrealism, that was my assumption. I didn't have a. When writing this, I also had that in the back of my head, but I had to get it out of my system. I wanted to cheaply make a movie which will take us into a totally different world, and that people associate that with expensive movies. You have to spend a lot of money for the set design and props and all special effects. And we had in a very small. We didn't have much of this, but we felt like we were in Hollywood. we had Cuba, and we said we want to have a container ship. You know, with people who are doing a short movie, it doesn't happen often that. And Cuba said, "Don't worry, it's easy. No problem, it's easy." So we had paradoxically, as I said, it was very difficult to come up with anything for any of the scenes, and it took for ages. Also, Natalia, the set designer, suffered a lot because she had to sit on it for a very long time. But limiting us with these worlds, where we felt that certain things work well, sometimes some things don't work well. For us, it was like a Hollywood. There was no limitation what can be done in our movie. Technically, because Kuba said that everything is easy. Do you get me? The world in which we operated, that was a great fun. The budget was 150 million, so to speak. I mean, a container ship bringing it was 30 million. We could do everything in CGI. That was very satisfying. We could do everything, and if it was an interesting case of a love scene, after taking the drug, the most versions we had was with the love scene when we were really spreading our wings. We could sort of have 30, like 100 of musical videos, but at the end of the day, I don't know if you've seen that. You sings a song, closes the eyes, and there's a black screen, and you have dialogues without any image. And I was watching it yesterday, and I said I like that scene. That there will be only language left in this most important part of this movie, and nothing else. So a total reduction. We could do anything, and we did nothing. Zero. It was a trap of sorts. We were thinking for a month. Once Wawrzyniec fell asleep when I was talking to him about my ideas. I mean, really, I was calling him. You know, I have an idea for the love scene, and every day I was tormenting him with my ideas. There were a million of them, and finally he said, "Okay, let's take a black screen, fade out." We left this. We managed to escape this trap set up by Kuba, our special effects guy, who said that we can do anything. Yeah. We gave one scene to the viewers to imagine. It is so that our assumption was that this minimalism is to cause the second movie to be born in our heads. If you get into that convention, because not everybody does. So if you go into that convention, you have an interesting trip with your life. That's why there are no distractors on this screen, and that's why this metaphor was supposed to be readable. It's a very simple storyline, so that you can generate your film in your head. And you can also talk about these different levels. The first line was very simple. This is what the form played against. That's why it had to stay. We couldn't resign. For a while, we felt like it might be like in the real world, but no. We had a lecture here with Agnieszka Smoczyńska, who showed the movie Antonioni's movie with Jack Nicholson, and there's a very important moment when he dies, and we don't see it. It's a very, very long shot. We see everything, and we don't see that important moment. So we have to imagine that in our heads, and that's why it stays in your memory. So it is similar and very interesting. I haven't seen, but I've been here 4 years ago, and I remember that movie. I really liked it. So I can imagine how it is when everything is totally black. I can imagine that scene, and that's a great idea, I think. Yesterday, one person came to us after the screening, saying that I cried. I said, why? Was it because of the protagonist or their life? Because at the end of the day, it's an interesting question. There is a space there for your story. I don't know if I can tell, but it's because of the life. She said it was my friend, and she said it's a story also from her. She's seen that already, and she felt it, and she feels it still. It really touched her deep within, and I wanted to say that I got very relaxed. I got very relaxed in this movie also because of this darkness and emptiness. It gave me a lot of pleasure to turn off my brain and not imagining everything, and I focused on this on the image and this philosophical thing. In the films, usually, if you have a set design in the whole frame, I have this whole process of imagining of the whole surroundings. Here, it was all serenity. Yeah, it was a serenity in the movie of being overflown with about the emotions overflow. It's good to hear that. This film, especially when you make a movie, this film also forced us to do that, because all this is black and we have to come up with ideas. Then we gave very concrete scenes, and each one of them was this micro story in itself, something that people can develop in their brains, and there was no place for the scenes between them. There are no in between scenes. I'm glad that this story still could somehow transfer you to a different place. The assumption was that there will be two films at once, so to speak. But it's good that you have a different reception of this. I wanted to add in terms of comparison, what's the difference between the two versions? The first one is that you can feel that it's a student movie in difficult convention, and the other one is that this is like a big, huge mega pro budget. You can feel that the polishing. You can feel that you did everything that you wanted. This is the difference that I felt. That's done extraordinarily. This is the discussion we had, because this movie was I got the feedback that some I talked to people and they said, well, people like it, we should send it to festivals, but then we decided that we like it and it's fun and everybody likes, like in the film spring, to see things, and they are more accepting than the viewers who are not in the film spring. So we knew this film. So it was unavoidable. Yes, I think that already in the first version, at the end of the day, there were 4 actors. I already have the reflection that sometimes, that there are plenty of good actors in Poland. Not all of them got their opportunity to play in the film, but you can feel it where in the movie you have those who are very good in the theater and who can find themselves in the movie. I do feel it, and this movie, it worked very well, and I had a pleasure in watching them. They're masters of the art. Well, here we do not have a father figure who's in the context of his father. We see a bottle that he's a drunkard. That's the image of his wife, who's sort of the picture of his wife, whom we know she's dead. No, there are 2 guys who are on the screen, and maybe they will tell us story, but without any chance, any opportunity to giving them an opportunity to tell the backstory. So I knew that these are people who have to appear for a second. They have to create protagonists who, for this one moment, will give us a feeling that we're dealing with something very, very strong. For example, Argon is as he is. Also, this actor, I saw him usually in a different setup. Yes, we wanted to use him in a different setup than usual. I had in my previous film, I had a father figure, and he worked very well, and that was good. And there were several people who were naturals. He was a natural too, especially the father, and some smaller side roles. But this was a totally different approach. I can't imagine here. There was no chance. I don't know what the casting should look like then. Somebody would take that text and that would be there also with the actors during the casting. Because you have to find a way, but it's very theatrical. What I like in this movie is the directness. Sometimes you can see him being sort of, these characters are attractive because they speak about their needs on the outset. That was the assumption of this world in this manifesto. As I wrote it in one night, and that was supposed to be the movie. They're not filtering. They're just splurting out all this bog, all this marsh they have in their heads. Everybody is so direct, and that's the assumption of this world, that people are too overhyped, and and this world doesn't care about anything anymore. It's just direct streaming of everything. The assumption was also that this this world was open for us, but it was written in the explication to Munch Studio that it's a world which is in the digital world half and half with the real world. It's like us. We're spending a lot of time in the internet. So there's and they don't have electronic elements. So the electronic devices, they have just a ship and the UFO. So they're not eating. They're not using any equipment. They're already in the internet. That was the assumption, and we held on to that. Only in the song when it's about love, that she would like to eat pizza with her. So thank you.